Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, June 27th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about President Trump and his future campaign stops and the absence of Virginia, a crucial battleground state in this governor election here in 2021 that President Trump doesn't seem to be heavily focused on compared to other elections. President Trump resumed campaigning yesterday, actually, in the state of Ohio. He visited right across the northern border of the state of Ohio, actually, right in this county, Lorain County, in which Donald Trump only won by 2.4% in the 2020 presidential election. So he visited a smaller town within this county and essentially, held a rally in which thousands of people had showed up to and listened to him speak. Now, instead of President Trump focus on a race that is supposed to be this determining factor for the GOP, or focus on something, or focus in a state that is competitive at least, or super competitive for 2022, he decides to visit the state of Ohio. And rather than focus on anything of substance for the 2022 midterms, he seems to use this as an opportunity to attack rhinos, Republicans in name only, and to continue these baseless claims of election fraud relative to the 2020 election. So President Trump is using his platform, his non-social media campaign stop platform, the traditional one that originated back in 2015 when President Trump went around the country and went to states that were deemed to be unwinnable. And even though they were in many senses unwinnable, for example, President Trump visited the state of Connecticut back in 2016 during the height of the 2016 election. But typically speaking, he likes to get his message across, but I find it to be quite interesting that he is absent in the state of Virginia. You see, when we're talking about President Trump holding these Save America rallies, you'd think that he'd focus on a state that he might believe that Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, actually has a chance in. This article, which was released back on the 20th of June, so just a few days ago, we see here that they talk about how President Trump is visiting Wallington, Ohio. Well, that was yesterday, and it plans to visit Tampa in the next month. And if you go on President Trump's website, you'll see the only event listed for Donald Trump's presence is in Sarasota, Florida, a state that is hundreds of miles away from Virginia and has no real implication electorally for 2022, at least right now. Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis seem to be on the pathways to be reelected, but that doesn't seem to be the purpose of these rallies. President Trump doesn't seem to be focusing too heavily on the 2022 midterm elections, or really anything immediately in front of them. He says that this rally yesterday was the very first rally of the 2022 election, but there wasn't much of substance actually set. And the thing about Ohio is that the only reason why I could honestly see him in Ohio is potentially because Rob Portman, the Republican, has said he is not running for re-election. The incumbent senator is stepping down and saying, I'm not going to put myself back on the ballot in November of 2022. So looking at the declared list here, President Trump has yet to make an executive decision as to who is going to be his nominee, who he is going to endorse, but it seems many Republicans are vying for such a position. But honestly, President Trump didn't come to Ohio simply to win over this base again, to improve the margin for the Republican in 2022. I truly think President Trump came here just to speak to a group of voters. When you take a look at the county that he went in, yes, President Trump didn't win here by a lot, but it's still an area right outside the Cleveland area where there's a high concentration of population, and still a lot of voters there did vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump wouldn't go to Cuyahoga County in the state of Ohio. It wouldn't really make sense. You wouldn't see him go into Franklin County because while it does have a lot of people, it's pretty much a Democratic area, so you're not going to find good company. But on the outskirts, typically speaking, you'll find people who are willing to travel outside of their comfort zone and go into an area that is more Republican, more pro-Trump, and go to one of his rallies. And when you take a look at what he actually said, there wasn't much of substance. And Virginia is a state where I really think the Republicans could try to make it competitive, while the Democrats certainly have this advantage as indicated in the preliminary election data, in the ratings by these pollsters, by these companies. What we know so far is that Virginia is a lean, possibly likely Democratic seat. That doesn't mean it's safe. That doesn't mean the Republican Party should entirely give up. Glenn Youngkin is probably one of the better, if not the best, nominee the Republican Party could have put forth in 2021. Yet President Trump doesn't seem to be giving it much attention. His statement made in the state of Virginia was simply put that Glenn Youngkin is a great guy, saying he's pro-business, pro-Second Amendment, pro-veterans, pro-America, and he knows how to make Virginia's economy rip-roaring and has his complete and total endorsement. But outside of that, President Trump hasn't spoken much about Glenn Youngkin. President Trump hasn't spoken much about Virginia altogether. I find it interesting that he chooses Ohio, of all places, and then Florida, rather than focus on what is expected to be potentially a competitive governor election. It's not as if Virginia is some solid Democratic state. Virginia is technically within reach for the Democrats. But I think President Trump really remembers that 2017 loss in the state in which Ralph Northam ended up defeating Ed Gillespie by a margin of 9 points statewide in this state. I mean, it was a pretty abysmal election result for the Republican Party, and I'm sure President Trump doesn't want that to happen again. President Trump largely contributed to this loss by the Republican Party, largely due to his very low popularity at this point in November of 2017. In fact, the highest difference between the disapprove and the approve was in December of 2017, just a month after this election. So while President Trump might be looking back at 2017 and considering this to be a momentous loss during his administration, a state that should have been competitive but was won by Democrats by 9 points, I think besides that, the Republican Party should certainly still be focusing in on this race. But maybe Glenn Youngkin doesn't want President Trump to be a part of this campaign. I mean, Glenn Youngkin won the nomination largely because he distanced himself away from President Trump far enough that he was able to win over the state delegation. When you're taking a look what happened in the Republican primary or the Republican convention, it started out as a primary. Amanda Chase declared herself the Trump of Virginia. Her campaign slogan was "Make Virginia Great Again." When you take a look at the polling data for the primaries, Amanda Chase led and led consistently. Every single poll that was released showed Amanda Chase ahead of Kurt Cox, Glenn Youngkin, Pete Snyder, and Glenn Youngkin, of course, ended up winning, but only through a convention process, which is much less people and pretty much just was a complete systematic change by the Virginia Republican Party in order to prevent an Amanda Chase nomination. They truly did not want someone of a Trump type of magnitude or Trump type of status to be in this position because they know President Trump has been rejected in the state. But even in congressional districts where Trump and the Republicans have been rejected before, in states as well, President Trump continues and continued in 2020 to campaign in such states. I mean, President Trump didn't give up Minnesota in 2020 simply because Hillary Clinton won it back in 2016. He didn't give up the state of New Hampshire. He didn't give up the state of Nevada. Looking at President Trump in a number of these areas, he did not give them up solely because Hillary Clinton had won there in 2016. And he probably won't be giving them up in 2022 solely because Joe Biden won them in 2020. But I am questioning, why isn't he in Virginia? I mean, I get it. Joe Biden won the state of Virginia by the largest margin for a Democrat since 1944, but that doesn't negate the fact that Virginia is a state that can be competitive in 2021. I mean, for Trump to be visiting Florida and Ohio but not Virginia seems to be quite surprising, but also may raise questions as to whether or not President Trump is confident in his choice in Virginia. Of course, he was going to choose the Republican nominee, but maybe that endorsement should have been withheld. President Trump loves flaunting his 98-99% success rate amongst endorsements, but he typically only endorses the solid candidates to boost such numbers. In Virginia, he's not exactly doing the same thing. In Virginia, he is endorsing someone who probably will end up losing. But his lack of, in addition, his lack of attendance in the state sort of tells us that he probably thinks so as well. When Obama returned to the campaign trail in 2017, he did so in Richmond, Virginia. He came back to the state and focused in on it because the Democratic Party, while in many regards were expected to win here, he wanted to ensure that. He wanted to make sure that Virginia wouldn't lapse back and become a Republican state as it was under President Obama's first term in 2009, in which a Republican won there by over 15 percentage points. President Obama's campaign stop for the first time had to do with a very contentious governor election in which the Democratic Party ended up winning by 9 points. So President Trump neglecting the state of Virginia and focusing on other states sort of raises questions. Why isn't he here? He needs to be in this position where he can prop up the Republican nominee. While President Trump wasn't the best performing Republican in Virginia, I'm sure that if 2022 is this red wave year as he flaunts in Ohio and Florida through press releases, through statements, through his surrogates, through the media, why isn't he focusing on Virginia? It's a notable absence and certainly needs to be discussed because it might tell us more about what he is expecting for 2022. To visit Ohio might indicate that maybe he views the Senate election as a more important race than the Virginia governor election. For him to visit Florida, this sort of confirms what we expected to see from him, that he's returning back to his comfort regions. President Trump never wants to be in a position where he's actively booed or protested. I mean, when that happens, the media loves to cover it, and he loves to kick these people out. But I can tell you now that President Trump certainly does not adore that. He does not want protesters or people that are in opposition to him to come to his rallies. So instead of turning to a state such as Virginia, he seems to be turning to Ohio and Florida. And as this article suggests, they say President Trump is going to visit Georgia and North Carolina, two states he won in 2016. He only won North Carolina in 2020, but it seems that he's going to be focusing on the Senate race in Georgia and the Senate race in North Carolina and completely ignoring the elephant in the room, that is Virginia. And this might indicate that future Republicans might be abandoning the state of Virginia for winnable elections. This is their last time to make a notable impression on the state. This is the last time for the foreseeable future that the Republican Party will have a pretty good shot at the governorship or winning statewide in the state of Virginia. While flukes do happen, Virginia's demographic trends, especially amongst the Northern Virginia area, sort of indicate that it's only going to get bluer. The rapid decrease in support for the Republican Party across Northern Virginia has been so far that Tim Kaine won by over 15 points in 2018, despite Hillary Clinton losing Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina. In 2016, Virginia still went to her by over 5 points. I mean, what happened in Virginia in 2016 could have been viewed, okay, maybe because of Tim Kaine, but then 2017 with a 9-point victory, 2018 with a 15, 16, 17-point victory, 2020 with a 10-point victory, 2019, the year before, actually, so I meant to mention this before, but with Democrats flipping the state legislature. I mean, what happened in Virginia was so monumental that the Virginia Republican Party sort of faded into irrelevancy, to a point where now this seems to be their last stand, and yet Donald Trump won't fight for it. It seems that the Republican Party probably won't be heavily focused on this race, even though if they are to have any type of resemblance or, recognition by the voters in Virginia that the GOP truly cares about winning here, if they don't have Trump come in, it tells them everything that they need to know. While Youngkin is probably quick to separate himself from President Trump is overwhelmingly approved of Republicans by Republicans in the state of Virginia. I understand he wants to win over those voters that moved away largely in response to President Trump, but for Youngkin to swoop across Southern Virginia with Donald Trump wouldn't be a bad idea. To ramp up turnout amongst rural areas in which no other Republicans have really been able to tap into wouldn't be a bad idea. Do I think President Trump going up to Northern Virginia, around Fairfax County, would that make sense? Probably not. It would probably enrage more voters than move them over to this side. But in Southern Virginia, moving in these areas where President Trump is already adored in, or, won in back in 2020, Sarasota, Florida, or, I forgot the name of the county in the state of Ohio. But the point is, President Trump goes to familiar territory, areas that he's won before, because it allows the turnout to rise. It allows these people to be more inspired by him. But Virginia, I don't think that this is a good move on behalf of the GOP. I understand Youngkin's quickness to push him away, and it makes sense for certain regions of the state, but the unfortunate reality for Republicans across the nation, not just in Virginia, is that they cannot win without winning over these Trump voters. But they also can't win if they go full Trump, at least in states like Virginia and even competitive states such as Georgia and Arizona. There needs to be that perfect medium, but it doesn't seem Glenn Youngkin wants to reach it. It also doesn't seem that Donald Trump is too willing to help them reach it. It seems that for him and his endorsements, you're either all for President Trump or you're not at all. He doesn't deal with rhinos, as he puts it, where people may be supporting him in one venture and not in the other. And politics is generally optics. Looking at the state of Virginia, you wouldn't necessarily blame the Republican nominee for campaigning with Donald Trump, especially after winning a primary primarily based off of Donald Trump voters. You sort of have to respond to those voters because they are the reason why you are in the GOP nomination in the first place. And people wouldn't necessarily blame Glenn Youngkin for it. I'm sure he would get some blowback for it, but it's necessary if he actually is to win in 2021. If Glenn Youngkin truly wants to win this governor election and he does so without President Trump, I will be thoroughly shocked. I don't think that's going to happen. Will President Trump hurt him in other regions? Yes, but he will certainly boost him in the southern region. He has to weigh these questions as to whether or not will it be worth it to have Trump on the campaign trail. And if it ends up being that red wave year, if Virginia ends up taking a sudden shift towards the right, as President Trump is predicting, as his surrogates are hoping, yes, he will need President Trump. This lack of acknowledgement even on the campaign trail to only send out a singular endorsement and to barely cover this race either indicates one, President Trump knows Youngkin is going to lose and doesn't want to double down on a failed endorsement, or two, Youngkin is pushing him away and President Trump is going with it. Looking at what's happening in the state of Virginia, President Trump's presence needs to be a little bit larger in order for Youngkin to actually inspire these voters, because now it's going to revert back to a standard Democrat versus Republican. The last time that happened was probably 2012 or 2013, but at that point, Democrats still won. And guess what? The state is more Democratic now than it was before. So there is no real technical winning strategy per se for the GOP that will be absolute in, completing their victory or even ensuring it at all. But I do want to say that there certainly is something interesting going on with President Trump not really acknowledging or visiting the state at all, and his first time returning to the campaign trail is in Ohio and Florida, two states that don't even have major elections up in 2021. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2021 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.